TSM, like everyone thinks I'm as like the face of NA. So obviously, like beating them, it's just fun. You get a lot of disappointed fans. Every team is playing pretty well this split, and it's very easy to like drop games to teams that you weren't expecting to drop games to. Going into it, it's just the same. We just prepare for them the same as any other team.
If you play the game better than the other team, you play your game better than the other team, you're going to come out with the win.
Welcome back to week 4 of the North American LCS. We're closing out a tremendous weekend of games live from our studios here in Los Angeles, California. As the fans have packed, not the pans have fact. I don't know what that is. Froggen made his way into the studio earlier today. He's got a tough matchup up against Bjergsen in the mid lane. The both of them have been crushing statistically, while the newest members of P1, Mike Young and Expecial, are going to go up against Conquan, who gets the start today for Team Liquid. Hello, everyone. I'm James Dash Patterson. And raise your hand if you know for a fact you're going to Boston for the summer finals. No? No, you do not.
I'm very
Good for you, Zyrene, though. I'm proud of you. You made it there. And Mark Zimmerman, we're just going to have to wait and see.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to make it.
You're
I
pretty
felt
confident.
a lot of support on my Twitter timeline.
How many bots did you purchase last night?
It was a couple hundred dollars worth. I think.
All right, well, then maybe you have a good chance, although I'm not necessarily convinced. Let's go ahead and start off the day with a peek at the standings. After an impressive 2-0 weekend, Immortals sit at the top in first place, leaving Counterlogic Gaming, Team Dignitas, and TSM just below them in second and third, while sixth place teams Envy and Echo Fox try to break into the top half of the table. We'll see who can disrupt the standings with our matches today. First up, we have Echo Fox, who hope to upset TSM on NALCS 1. After that, Team Dignitas hope to recover from their loss last night as they go up against another tough opponent in Cloud9. If you're tuning in on NALCS 2, your day starts with Team Liquid versus Phoenix 1, followed by FlyQuest versus Team Envy to close out the day. Last night, we saw Immortals claim first after winning the fastest game of the split. These guys have looked incredibly solid throughout the first 4 weeks of the split.
Yeah, not every best of 3 actually means it was a close series. This is one where Immortals kind of threw away game 1 off a really aggressive dive and then absolutely obliterated Dignitas in games 2 and 3 to close out what is a very tough weekend against what were the other 5-1 teams heading into it.
Yeah, they almost had perfect games there back-to-back. It was pretty destructive from Immortals. And like you said, they played the teams at the top of the table. So right now, Immortals 7-1. They're done with week 4. Nobody can catch them right now, and they're off in first place. And they've won against those other top teams.
Right, exactly. The only team left for them to play in the first round robin is Echo Fox, and they'll take on them next week in week 5. Again, if you assume the victory, given the way that they've been defeating the rest of these top teams, they finish out the first round robin at 8-1. And while Immortals impressed Dignitas, I mean, they took a little bit of a punch yesterday, getting smacked around, and their schedule gets no easier today, in a sense, up against Cloud9.
And that's the thing, is that it was kind of telegraphed in how they play. We always talk about, oh, it's all about someday, and that's fine. But we saw Immortals in game 2 completely ignore the top side of the map and get way more done on the bot side. And then in game 3, they do the opposite strategy, aggressively attack someday in the top lane and kind of get held down.
Yeah, now you like to see that diversity from Immortals, but on the side of Dignitas, it's pretty one-dimensional. Shrimp actually got shut down in both those games. And I feel like if you're trying to be a top team at the top of the standings right now, if you have a weakness in any of your lanes that's showing, you're going to start falling a little bit. You look at Immortals, and right now they haven't really shown weaknesses across their lanes. You even look at Cody's son, who's performing well. But like Dignitas, Shrimp doesn't look very good in that last matchup. And then Lot in the bottom lane has also been a big question mark. And they're going up against C9, who, they're also having some weaknesses too.
That's a good point, I think, right? You look at C9, and it's very easy to put a spotlight on the mid lane and say, well, Jensen is just crushing kids left and right. But the rest of the squad around him not necessarily performing to the levels that we might expect of a Cloud9 team.
Right, Jensen is probably what you would say is one of the early MVP candidates, yet his team is sitting just above 500, and it's kind of off the back of the fact that there's no other consistent member that performs. Smoothie's hit or miss, and Sneaky really needs the bot lane to get going off the back of Smoothie, so when he's not playing well, Sneaky kind of just has to go with the flow. Contracts is a little shaky, and then for the most part, Impact is falling behind.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want to touch on here is Impact in the top lane. It used to be he could go even in those tank matchups that he's not supposed to, but now he's falling behind, he's getting exploited, and even when he's on those tanks, I feel like he's kind of lucky now because the meta is moving slowly away from them. But at the same time, he's not showing us that he can play even the tanks well right now in the meta.
We'll have to see if Contracts takes a page out of Smithy's playbook, maybe goes up there top as he did in that third game and kind of can snowball the matchup against Someday in the other direction. Now, another matchup with high stakes, although taking place at the bottom of the table, is Team Liquid versus Phoenix One. Phoenix One found their first match victory of the split just yesterday.
And it was admittedly a pretty convincing performance because they had initially played against CLG last week with this roster and took them to 3 games, looked decent.
Yep.
So you got to say P1's on the up and up, whereas Team Liquid making their own roster moves really doesn't find any traction with them. They look like mostly the same team. Even if they get early game leads, they are completely incapable of transitioning into mid and late game advantages.
Yeah, TL still doesn't look like a team, and they're struggling to actually find what's going to work for them. And if they're splitting scrim time, trying to figure out which player out of these, we saw 8 different players,
right?
Total from Team Liquid so far, just in this week, and that's crazy to think about because now it means they're going up against Phoenix One, who don't have that many subs at all, and they aren't running them anymore. They settled on the roster, and they look good. Phoenix One with Mike Young looks like a top half of the standings team.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because it's a battle of the 2 teams that are building around their star ADCs in Piglet and Arrow. And, of course, we'll have to see who becomes more successful. Concon getting the start today for Team Liquid. But I also want to dive into your point there about Phoenix One's performance from last week. Even though they didn't come away with the victories, we had some fun looking at some statistics. Phoenix One, if you isolate the Mike Young games, actually has the largest gold leads in that early game portion of the...
And something that I think is so interesting that I want to see more of is these jungle leashes. I want to see the super leashes where they help you do red buff and then you start Raptors and you get that really fast clear. Because it used to be, you know, we're seeing like FlyQuest, they're like, Moon gets level 2. Give all your resources away. Go gank, lose part of your jungle. Great. Maybe you got it off, maybe you didn't. High risk. But when you help your jungler out, you set him up to have so many resources to give away during the mid game.
And just how P1 plays, obviously, they're a team with 2 really good carries in Arrow and Rio, though they're not particularly dominant in the early game. So you give Mike Young this giant leash, let him go run wild on the map, and he makes it so the rest of the team is so busy focusing on him that you're kind of just scaling into the game. And as long as he's not throwing away his leads and creating problems, as long as he's just providing you space to scale up, then eventually Arrow gets to that point where he starts taking over the game.
Now, a spotlight on both of our matchups that are taking place early this morning. We've got the Danes in the mid lane over on NALCS 1, and then, of course, we've got the bot lanes up against each other here on NALCS 2. Now, remember, tickets are going on sale for our summer finals over in Boston, and pre-sale bundles do go live tomorrow with the general sale opening up on Tuesday, June 27th. For more information on the pre-sale, head over to lolesports.com.
Mark, you go get your tickets?
I don't need them.
Did you submit your email?
I don't need to. Riot's bringing me. I feel it.
He's rolling the dice. He's rolling the dice, gambling. All right, but now is that time when we turn to Mark's 85%.
No way. Let's go.
That is baffling to me. You're more popular than like half of the
I have amazing
NALCS
approval
teams.
ratings. Yeah.
What is
Everyone
this?
loves me. How could you not?
There was probably another event that was using the same hashtag for Take Mark.
That's
it's probably
what it
like
was.
some concerts, probably some band, right?
Yeah.
Some indie band. I love Take Mark.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more popular than them. I bet more of them are coming to me than that band.
Yeah, I guess you bought more bots than I did.
Yeah.
Apparently, I did
It was
everything
more
in my
important for
power
me.
to
You
leave you
didn't have
here.
to harden it. I wanted to go really
My
bad.
goodness,
So
I didn't want it bad enough. Ladies and gentlemen, while that question has been resolved, we could use your answers to our Twitter question of the day. Who is your mid-split MVP and why? Make sure to use the hashtag NALCS so that Azale, Jat, and I can go over your answers tonight on NALCS Tonight. Let's pass it over to the casters, though, to kick off the day of games.
Thanks, Dash.